If you need to recharge, what better way than to snuggle up with friends or family and play some couch co-op games? If you want shooting games, a platform challenge or a complicated puzzle, I have everything you need in this video with the best couch co-op games for PS4. A mission-based action RPG aimed squarely at Dragon Ball fans, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 tasks you with correcting franchise history. Playing as your own custom hero, you travel to various points in the Dragon Ball timeline, helping Goku and the gang out in their iconic battles. Highly customizable combat and a near-endless list of missions make Xenoverse 2 an adaptation that's hard to put down once you're in the grind. Borderlands 3 story is about a group of vault hunters, aka you, attempting to stop a pair of dangerous twins with evil intentions. It's a decent tale, but it's mainly there just to give you an excuse to travel around the dangerous world of Pandora, shooting things and having a good time. This is where the game excels, as its pure action-packed gameplay is a delight, especially with friends. The shooting feels smooth, and there's plenty of enemy variety. Plus, as the title boasts RPG elements, there are fun special abilities to use, too. Streets of Rage 4 finally brings the classic series back, and it does so with plenty of style. Arcadey beat-em-ups aren't as common as they used to be, but this modern iteration is about as good as they get. Crunchy, satisfying combat is the order of the day as endless goons populate the screen, lining up for a beatdown from classic characters and new ones alike. With both local and online play, you can clean up the streets with some buddies too. The game may have Batman in the title, but LEGO Batman 3 is more of a general DC game as it contains many characters from the comic universe, including heroes and villains. Most of them feature in the main story, which revolves around Brainiac's invasion of Earth. The difficult predicament convinces the forces of good and evil to team together. So, there are some strange team-ups throughout the game, and you get to experience them with a buddy. The gameplay is what you expect to see in a LEGO game as you run around vibrant levels, smashing things to bits and beating up enemies. It's casual and exciting fun. Sony's flagship racing series has had its ups and downs, but Gran Turismo Sport was an especially unusual step in the history of the franchise. Primarily focusing on online multiplayer and esports, the game featured the same gorgeous visuals and impressive handling you'd expect, but without most of the content that fans love. Again, the game itself looks and plays great, and its online racing is rather innovative, encouraging good sportsmanship above all. There's still a lot to like about Sport, but the meteor Gran Turismo 7 is arguably the stronger entry overall. Quake 2 is a classic sci-fi FPS title that has recently been enhanced for newer consoles. It isn't a full remake, so it still looks and feels a lot like the original, but it runs smoother. If you're not an expert on Quake, all you need to know is that you use big guns to destroy all sorts of dangerous enemies. And you can do that with up to 3 friends by your side as you take on the entire campaign in split screen. There are also some PvP modes to enjoy if you feel like killing your friends instead of working alongside them. Magicka 2 is a power fantasy in the sense that it gives players the ammunition to create spells that could impress the likes of Gandalf, Shang Tsung, and Doctor Strange. While players are given all the tools they might need, executing them is hardly easy as it requires carefully pressing the right buttons to combine magic types, and these input sequences are long. Testing as the game's learning curve can be, Magicka 2 rewards the committed with satisfying wizardry destruction. Although possible solo, Magicka 2 is meant to be played with a few friends as enemies hit hard and without remorse. In a group of 4, players can spread overwhelming and delightful mayhem across the land. It is a lot of fun. Improved dramatically over the years, culminating in the unmissable Street Fighter V Arcade Edition, few games deliver multiplayer thrills and spills quite like Street Fighter V. This game has benefited from years of updates and improvements, and has blossomed into a must-play entry in the genre, despite its day-one woes. With a robust spread of single-player content and one of the strongest competitive scenes on PS4, this is a total knockout. There are a few different types of hack-and-slash games. Some of the most interesting incorporate a 1 versus 100 approach where you face off against a screen full of foes all at the same time. This is what you experience in Samurai Warriors 5. However, in this game, you don't have to face all the enemies alone. The title offers a cooperative Citadel mode where you and a friend take on waves of enemies as you attempt to defend bases. It isn't a completely original mode, but the core combat makes it fun. Knack gets a lot of grief, and has been reduced to little more than memes at this point, but the sequel is a genuinely good action platformer. While the first game undoubtedly has its issues, Knack 2 is a big improvement. Expanded combat options, a bigger emphasis on platforming, and local co-op make this adventure a very enjoyable one that's suitable for the whole family. Resident Evil 6 is split into 4 campaigns that feature different protagonists, and all their stories intertwine with one another. Each one can be played in split-screen co-op. It's not a game beloved by the Resident Evil fanbase because it's a lot more action-packed than the horror series is expected to be. However, as an action game, it provides plenty of silly fun. After all, most sequences have you fighting against all sorts of outrageous beasts in fast-paced third-person gunfights. There are even some boss battles thrown in, too. Mortal Kombat 10 has become something of a fan favorite over the years, a typically gory and charmingly daft entry in the long-running series. On a mechanical level, X gets a lot right. It's like a melding of older Mortal Kombat titles, spruced up for modern times. Whatever your skill level happens to be, it's great bloody fun, capped off by a comprehensive character roster and loads of engaging game modes. In the first Divinity Original Sin, you play as 2 customizable heroes known as Source Hunters. They're tasked with stopping a mysterious energy known as the Source. Yet, this is a deep RPG, so the compelling narrative gets more complicated than it initially seems. Plus, it isn't all about the main story anyway, as there is plenty of side content for you to engage with. Whatever you're doing, though, you can bring a friend along for the ride. Together you make decisions and participate in turn-based battles. After years of divisive 3D games, Sega partnered with indie developers and true fans of Sonic to revert back to the Hedgehog's glory days. Sonic Mania is a combination of classic zones and brand new ones, celebrating his 2D era in one of his strongest outings ever. The classic gameplay is back and better than before with the drop dash ability, and there's multiplayer and blue sphere stages to enjoy too. A seriously well-rounded game that old-school Sonic fans will adore. Only gaming mascot that stars in kart racing games. The characters from the Sonic universe also take to the track to compete with one another in several titles. However, not only does Team Sonic Racing allow you to compete against friends, you can team up with them, too. This is because, as the title of the game suggests, you can play team races. In them, you all still have your own car, but you share power-ups. And your score at the end of the race is determined by where everyone finishes. All this can be played in up to 4-player split screen. Strategy games are already niche, and Kingdom 2 Crowns is a fairly unique entry in that genre. The side-scroller casts players as a ruler who must travel across islands to try and establish their kingdom. Naturally, this process involves investing a lot of money in infrastructure, all the while creating strongholds that can protect people from monsters. Being king or queen is not simple, easy, or predictable, and failure is part of the learning process in Kingdom 2 Crowns. If the weight of this responsibility is too much for one shoulder to take, then a second ruler can step in to help carry the burden. However, Kingdom 2 Crowns co-op involves little direct interaction between the players since the game casts them as monarchs who coexist while still largely doing their own thing. While the RPGs are generally single-player experiences, there are some good co-op role-playing games, too. For example, Outward allows you to play through the whole thing in 2-player split screen. During the game, you play as an unlucky character who inherits a large debt that they have to pay off. To do so, they have to work with one of the game's factions, and you get to choose which one. As you can tell by the story premise, you don't control a special hero of any kind. You play as a regular person, which means you usually have to outsmart the opposition in combat. Enemies are your only threat, though, as the game has survival mechanics, meaning you have to avoid starvation, dehydration, or getting a disease. PS4 fans had to wait a little longer to play Cuphead, but it was worth it. This is a side-scrolling platformer/shooter with one major trump card: its unbelievably good presentation. The game looks like an animated cartoon from the 1930s, and it's incredibly effective. Combined with rock-hard boss fights and a superlative soundtrack, Cuphead is a challenge you won't mind enduring thanks to all that style. Stardew Valley is one of the most famous relaxing games in recent memory. In it, you take over a farm that is in a pretty bad state, and you fix it up. At least that is what you're encouraged to do, but the title gives you the freedom to go about your Stardew life how you see fit. You don't have to live that life alone, though. There is a co-op option in the game that allows another person to join you as a farmhand. Yet, that doesn't mean they just have to stick to working on the farm. They can do a lot of the same things as the host. Supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars take to the field in Rocket League, a chaotic clash of arcade racing and the beautiful game. Slick controls ensure that its simple premise scores with Messi-like precision, providing a multiplayer experience that's easy to pick up but almost impossible to put down. Nifty netcode keeps you on the pitch as much as possible, while unlockables allow you to kit out your car with sombreros and other similarly silly garbs. Don't Starve Together is a different breed of multiplayer split-screen game. The goal of the game is in its name, but it is infused with elements of horror and the design consists of a stylistic approach. You can play split-screen online with your friend and explore the numerous expansion packs they have made available. Together, you can craft items and create structures as you battle monsters and a variety of other surprises you won't be expecting. You and your friend will be blown away by the nature of this game and the fun you will have while playing it. Despite later versions improving upon the formula, the original Overcooked is still a wonderful multiplayer game. It kicked off a trend of simple, accessible co-op games, and it's not hard to understand why. This cooking game may look friendly and straightforward, but if you and your friends aren't careful, chaos can quickly take over the kitchen. Communication is key in this fantastic co-op game, and if you want a bit of spice, there are some competitive multiplayer levels too. There are some unwritten rules in gaming. One of them is if you're playing split screen, you're forbidden to look at someone else's screen. This rule has been around forever. However, in Screen Cheat, you have to look at other people's screens. This is because the game resembles a GoldenEye-like PvP game, but with the twist that everyone is invisible. Therefore, the only way you can figure out where they are is by looking at their screens. Each map contains plenty of different colored environments to make it easy to identify where others are hiding. It's clever and fun. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 brings back a pair of absolute classics for a new audience. Remaking both games to modern standards, the package retains the zippy, addictive gameplay fans know and love with up-to-date visuals and a refreshed soundtrack. It's a super impressive game with loads to see and do, including a full suite of local and online multiplayer to enjoy with friends. Darksiders is a long-running series with plenty of installments. Genesis serves as a prequel to the main games and features the fourth horseman of the apocalypse, Strife. He teams up with his brother War, aka Player 2, to investigate what Lucifer is planning. Along the way, the brothers face many enemies. The combat is of a top-down hack-and-slash variety, and each character is a bit different. Strife uses pistols, while War favors the blade. When not fighting, they can do some platforming or general exploring. A twin-stick shooter, Alienation was a blast when it came out in 2016 and time has done little to hurt the game's appeal. Earth has fallen at the hands of an alien invasion, so it is up to the players to turn the tide by doing a lot of shooting and killing. Alienation supports single-player and online co-op, both of which are quite fun, although the latter isn't all that active nowadays. However, the shooter is arguably at its best when played in local co-op since this allows the team to coordinate better. There are 4 characters with individual classes, each of whom has unique strengths and weaknesses. Alienation is explosive, incorporates engaging RPG elements, and offers quite a steep challenge. Anyone who has played an Earth Defense Force game in the past will know what to expect with EDF-5. Every mission in this wild game is about surviving hordes of enemies. And this isn't like any regular horde. There are always an incredible amount of beasts coming your way. These are not tiny soldiers either. They're all giant monsters that tower over you and your buddies. Thankfully, you can have some great weaponry at your disposal to take them out, depending on your character class. Whatever gun you have, though, battles are guaranteed to be wild and wonderful. Call of Duty: Modern Warfare brings back one of the most influential shooters ever in this robust remake. It looks fantastic, plays just as well as you'd expect, and features all the multiplayer goodness you could want. The campaign is the star of the show, though, building on what came before to make it even more cinematic and engaging. One of the better entries in the franchise in recent memory. Escape Academy is about a school where students learn to become masters at completing escape rooms. Their main form of teaching seems to be through practical assignments, as you and a friend spend the entire game solving escape room-like puzzles. There's not much more to explain about the game, as the premise is very simple. But the puzzles are not, as there are plenty of head-scratching ones. And there is a lot of variation to them, which helps keep things interesting. A visual tour de force, with a stunning cinematic campaign that actually felt worth a damn. Injustice 2 saw NetherRealm Studios on top form. With dynamically changing ladders introducing new challenges every hour and a neat loot system which added real replayability to the game, this fighter will go down in history as one of the biggest, most graphically stunning efforts ever to release on consoles at the time. Many games include exciting prison break sequences, but Escapists 2 revolves around the concept. Each level tasks you with figuring out creative ways to escape your confinement and then pull it off. It's not all done on a whim, though, as careful planning is often required, as you need to right gear and opportunity to leave the prison. The benefit of the second game is that it has co-op, meaning you can make these daring escapes with a buddy or three. If you do, you will have to utilize teamwork to make sure things go smoothly. A retro-style platformer, Shovel Knight exceeds the genre's usual expectations with its imaginative characters and cool story moments. It's a colorful, rock-solid adventure and is now enormous thanks to multiple free updates. These have brought co-op play, a VS mode, and new playable heroes with their own campaigns, making Shovel Knight an easy recommendation if you're looking for an old-school adventure with modern sensibilities. By this point, the LEGO series has mastered the art of cooperative play, and that's proven in LEGO Marvel Superheroes. The game contains all of the most famous characters in the Marvel Universe, and the heroes all team together in an attempt to stop villains like Loki and Galactus from conquering Earth. It plays mostly like the standard LEGO game, as you go through each level defeating enemies and solving puzzles. However, the superheroes obviously get to use their signature powers, too. So, Spider-Man gets to swing, and Mr. Fantastic can use his stretching abilities. There is also a cool free roam element to the game that allows you to explore the LEGO version of New York. The Call of Duty series has had an inconsistent relationship with split-screen co-op, as the feature only makes it into some entries. Black Ops 3 offers one of the best co-op experiences in the series because you can play the entire campaign with a buddy. It features a futuristic story, which might not be the most original tale ever told, but it moves along nicely. On top of the campaign, the game's exciting zombie mode is also playable with a friend. So, the title offers plenty of co-op-based content. Beat-em-ups really are made for co-op, and TMNT, Shredder's Revenge exemplifies that. Inspired by the franchise's classic entries in the genre, the 2022 release is a colorful and challenging throwback that should satisfy fans of Turtles in time along with newcomers who never stepped into arcades. For the most part, the campaign follows a fairly standard structure for a beat-em-up, including offering a myriad of playable characters, the Turtles themselves, Splinter, April, and Casey Jones. More importantly, each character has a unique moveset and strengths that set them apart from their peers. This versatility significantly enhances the project's replayability since a single playthrough probably won't take somebody longer than a couple of hours. In co-op, friends can team up to take on the Foot Clan, and they will do more than just share a screen. Shredder's Revenge incorporates a couple of multiplayer-focused mechanics that reward co-op play, including special two-player attacks. Along with local co-op, the game also supports online multiplayer for up to 6 participants, and it is possible to mix and match the two versions to fully stack a lineup. A few Resident Evil games contain split-screen co-op play, but Revelations 2 differs from the rest because it's asymmetric. Claire controls like the typical RE protagonist, as she has a range of guns to kill any monster in her path. Her partner, Moira, doesn't use guns. She can attack with a crowbar, but her main role is to use a flashlight to find things. The other team of protagonists functions in a similar way, as Barry is there to shoot people while Natalia finds things. Therefore, working together is important for progressing and surviving in this episodic horror game. One of the greatest anime-based fighting games ever, Dragon Ball FighterZ is a masterclass in adapting an existing franchise. Bandai Namco wanted a Dragon Ball title that could stand on a tournament stage, and so it recruited the fighting game geniuses at Arc System Works. The result is a downright stunning, but also brilliantly deep team-based brawler. It has a few too many Gokus in its character roster, perhaps, but that's a minor criticism when the game's in full flow. A joyous, competitive celebration of Akira Toriyama's timeless creation. Not many video games can manage to condense 9 movies worth of storytelling into one sprawling adventure, but that is precisely what Traveler's Tales has accomplished with their latest LEGO Star Wars game. The game not only sports a shiny new look made possible by the use of a bespoke engine, but it also boasts some of the funniest gags seen in a LEGO game. Then there is its vast roster of Star Wars characters like Master Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi that you can play across the entire adventure. And the fact that you can do so with somebody else through drop-in and drop-out split-screen co-op is just icing on an already delicious cake. An action RPG roguelike, Children of Morta follows the Bergson family as they crawl their way through randomly generated dungeons. Featuring 7 playable characters that each feel unique, players have a wide range of duos they can try out, and they will need to experiment since swapping between family members is required. Along with decent gameplay that blossoms nicely as the campaign progresses, Children of Morta also tells a surprisingly effective character-driven narrative, presenting the Bergsons as a unit with history rather than mere puppets. Friends looking for a more difficult co-op game should try out this title. The Borderlands games have always placed a heavy emphasis on co-op, so it shouldn't really come as a surprise that the same is true of the latest spin-off title. In Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, up to 4 players can play together cooperatively, which is how you'd want to tackle the game given its Dungeons & Dragons-inspired story and gameplay. The co-op action is limited to just 2 players on the PS4 version though, so worth keeping in mind if you're planning a 4-player LAN party. Capcom's Resident Evil is primarily known for its single-player campaigns, but the franchise has dipped its toes into co-op on occasion. For the most part, the series has a solid track record when it comes to 2-player gameplay, and its co-op peak is undoubtedly Resident Evil 5. Marking a full shift into action territory, RE5 is a third-person shooter with a campaign that can be fully experienced with a partner, and the game is at its best when that is the case. Chris Redfield and Shiva Alamar have to make their way through a nation in West Africa infested with the Ouroboros virus. Teamwork is very important here, and players are expected to have each other's backs. Ammo is relatively scarce too, so coordinating weapons to ensure both protagonists are armed and ready is crucial. Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil Revelations 2, and Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles also support couch co-op and are part of PS Plus Premium. They do not quite reach the same heights as RE5, but they are decent, particularly RE6. What started out as a riff on the popular first-person shooters of the day quickly grew to become a veritable competitive shooter in its own right with Plants vs. Zombies, Garden Warfare 2. The development team at PopCap Games basically took all the feedback from the first Garden Warfare and used it as a basis to craft a sequel that improved on the original in nearly every way. The result is a game that lived up to its title by providing countless hours of lighthearted mayhem while remaining fun to play. Personal preference aside, Hazelight's It Takes Two is arguably the best co-op game of the 2020s, and something special will need to come out to dethrone it. Plenty of titles incorporate cooperative play alongside a single-player option, but the 2021 release commits itself to its concept by mandating the participation of 2 players. This requirement fits the game's story and mechanics, both of which entirely center around co-op coordination. The narrative centers around a soon-to-be divorced married couple who are accidentally transformed into dolls by their grieving daughter, sending them on an impressively wild adventure filled with unpredictable turns. When it comes to gameplay, It Takes Two blends an array of genres and styles, taking hints from 3D platformers along with puzzle and action games. Hazelight went out of its way to diversify the campaign's levels as much as possible to ensure players feel like they are in a constantly evolving adventure, and most of the ideas are well implemented and complement the characters' journeys. EA Sports FC 24 is the ultimate simulation of football, aka soccer. It's technically not a split-screen game. Yet, the title is built for local multiplayer. When you're on the same side, teamwork is key, as you won't be successful if you never pass the ball. You have to work with your friends to both score and defend. If that sounds tiring, you can always face off against your buddies instead in various modes. So, the title offers enjoyable cooperative and competitive experiences. Developer Drinkbox Studios struck gold with Guacamelee, a side-scrolling Metroidvania with a comical Mexican rapper. The Super Turbo Championship Edition is that same great game along with all its DLC bundled in and some extra content for good measure. Playing as one, you explore a vibrant, interconnected world that slowly opens up as you earn new abilities. These Lucador powers double up as combat and traversal mechanics, with the game leaning into fights and exploration equally. It's great fun solo, but you can also play with up to 3 friends in co-op, which adds to the colorful chaos. If you enjoy Minecraft and games like it, then you should consider giving Terraria a chance. It is a very popular sandbox game that allows its players to create and build their own imaginative worlds by digging, constructing, and working together to bring your vision to life. You can explore for resources, hunt down weapons, protect your home from invaders, throw parties, and even change the type of biome you're building inside. There are tons of different events, bosses, and NPCs to keep the game interesting, and you can easily sink dozens of hours into Terraria. Debuting as an Xbox console exclusive, The Ascent eventually joined Sony's ecosystem, and while not a masterpiece, the Cyberpunk game has more than enough to offer to warrant a recommendation. Just to be clear, this action RPG works well as a solo experience, and an argument could be made that this option represents the game at its best. Nevertheless, the 4-play co-op support does not detract much from the overall package, even if it does not add a great deal to it. Furthermore, The Ascent can be a slog at times, so having a few friends along for the ride can help greatly during these moments. Set in Velis, players step into the shoes of a mercenary, a role that is not exactly highly regarded. The beautifully designed urban jungle is arguably the game's highlight, and exploring Velis leads to some of the campaign's most memorable moments. The RPG utilizes a twin-stick shooter combat system that, while decent, might take a second to grow on someone since it is slower than the genre's typical offerings. As the name suggests, Ark: Survival Evolved is an intense survival video game set in a prehistoric era that allows both single-player and multiplayer gameplay. It is an open-world game that allows players to try and survive in a deserted landscape with tons of dinosaurs and other dangerous creatures running around. There are more than 140 different species present in the game. Once you tame animals, you'll even be able to ride on them, and you'll want to collect powerful weapons to keep yourself safe. There are different modes in the game depending on your preferred difficulty. Refining the tone of its writing and delivering a much better paced story, Divinity: Original Sin 2 is a huge improvement on an already great role-playing experience. Character creation is meaningfully in-depth, and every action throughout your adventure further defines your hero. As far as player choice goes, Larian's sequel is one of the very best titles on PS4, and the many paths that you can take make it a brilliantly replayable package. Wipeout Omega Collection is a great futuristic racing game where players control anti-gravity ships through a myriad of different modes and tracks. Every ship comes with its own special characteristics and add-ons. You'll be able to customize and earn different updates as you play the game and collect items. It contains remasters of the original games of the series and will keep you busy as you learn to navigate the tracks and execute hairpin turns. Plus, it has a really cool soundtrack that is sure to get your blood pumping. The Trine series has always been known for its engaging cooperative gameplay, but some players were disappointed with the third installment in the series, noting that it took away from a lot of the gameplay elements that made the series such a fun local co-op romp. Trine 4 aimed to set things right by once again giving players the puzzle-solving, side-scrolling, action-heavy platforming content they come to know and love. While some players still regard Trine 2 as the best in the series, there is so much to appreciate with the fourth installment, including its stunningly beautiful visuals and environments. The gameplay is also better than ever. Star Wars Battlefront 2 provides a split-screen option for you and your friend to team up in the arcade mode. You can choose to fight one another or take on enemies as a single unit. The game allows you to blast stormtroopers as you pick from a variety of characters and defeat the multitude of coming waves. You won't be able to play online in split-screen mode, but neither of you will mind because both of you will find enjoyment in exploring everything the arcade mode has to offer. Dodge Roll's Enter the Gungeon's co-op is not perfect, but it is unique. A fairly successful roguelike, the 2016 game has many of the genre's standard tropes, including punishing difficulty and level reset following a death. However, Enter the Gungeon does try to grant players a sense of progress by allowing them to purchase and unlock weapons for future runs, so it is not the most unforgiving roguelike on the market. Rather than allowing friends to pick different starting characters, the co-op mode casts the second player as an in-game NPC who is not usable in solo runs. This firmly casts player 2 in a supportive role, although they still gain access to most of the same weapons as the main user. Furthermore, while Enter the Gungeon is tough in any state, co-op ramps up the challenge considerably. Minecraft is a timeless multiplayer split-screen game that the young and old alike love to play. It has 2 game modes where you can create whatever you want or choose to survive in a dangerous world. The split-screen feature makes it easier to collaborate with your friend as you create impressive structures, including everything from sunken ships to imaginary castles. The possibilities are literally endless and you won't regret a single second you spend playing this split-screen game with your friends. A Way Out can only be played in 2-player co-op, and because it's designed around that restraint, it's an excellent multiplayer adventure. Playing as a pair of convicts, the game takes you and a buddy on a wild ride as they escape from prison and look to get revenge for those that did them dirty. With an interesting story and lots of co-op focused gameplay, this is a great game to play with a pal. Crash Team Racing is a revamped version of the original from 1999, and now it includes competitive online modes. This game is still split screen, so you can continue to race your friends in a mix of the original and newly created maps. You can choose from a variety of characters including Crash and Nitro's Oxide. You and your friend will be transported back in time as you experience modern-day Crash Team Racing. Though showing its age a little these days, Tekken 7 remains a great fighting game. Its super crunchy combat is arguably better than ever here, with its overhauled rage system giving even novice players a fighting chance. There's an OTT story to follow and a solid suite of modes to enjoy, including local and online multiplayer of course. An all-round excellent fighter. Borderlands, the Handsome Collection is a split-screen multiplayer series of games for any pair of friends who love to defeat hordes of monsters. You can work in tandem as you find and use all sorts of wild weaponry against the various rogues living on the dangerous world of Pandora. The monsters will continue to grow harder and harder as the game progresses, but as you team up together your characters will become unstoppable. Killing monsters will become second nature to you as you both battle your way past the bosses and use your special abilities to ensnare them. Originally planned as a Wii U exclusive, the death knell to Nintendo's ill-fated home console proved positive news for PlayStation fans when it went multi-platform. Building upon the stunning UbiArt engine of its predecessor, Rayman Legends is a sublime side-scroller from start to finish. While not all of the touchscreen gimmicks translate optimally to the DualShock 4, you'll be hard-pushed to find a better platformer than this on PS4. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far and until next time, bye.